Hello, my name is Alex Proctor. I'm the Chief Trust and Privacy Officer at Captain Compliance. In this video, I'm going to be discussing some interesting legislative activity coming out of Virginia. A few weeks ago, in January, Bill 769 was formally introduced in the Virginia Senate. This bill was written with an intention to amend data controller responsibilities as well as transparency requirements within Virginia's state privacy law. If passed, this bill would disrupt the cookie consent compliance landscape in Virginia, and it could even have broader implications on how organizations manage cookie consent policy across the entire United States. Now, I will say this. Right as I'm preparing for and working on this video, it appears that this bill has been left in committee, lowering the chances of any significant advancement in the short term. Regardless, we may see it reintroduced in the future, or we may see the same type of bill introduced and advanced in other states. So, for context, the first thing to know is that Virginia already has a comprehensive privacy law. It's called the Virginia Consumer Data Protection Act, or VCDPA. The law was early to the scene. In fact, this was the second comprehensive privacy law to be passed in this country, following California's. It's already been effective for more than 2 years. Virginia takes privacy seriously. Now, the VCDPA applies to businesses that operate in Virginia or those that produce products or services that are targeted to residents of the state. It applies to businesses that process the personal data of at least 100,000 consumers, or alternatively, those that process the personal data of 25,000 consumers while also deriving 50% of gross revenue from selling personal data. It provides consumer privacy rights relating to access, correction, deletion, portability, and non-discrimination, as well as the opportunity to opt out of personal data processing for the purposes of sale, targeted advertising, or profiling. Fines and penalties for non-compliance can reach up to $7,500 for each individual violation. Now let's talk about this new bill and how it or one like it would change the law. If you read the proposed bill, you will see that there is a subsection that discusses how controllers must provide consumers with reasonably accessible, clear, and meaningful privacy notices. At the end of this subsection, new cookie consent requirements are described. I'm going to read this part straight from the bill, and then we'll talk about what it means. Such privacy notice shall also include a method by which a consumer may opt out of the automatic placement of a data file, commonly referred to as a cookie, on the consumer's computer or web browser, and a disclosure for the purposes of which such data files are used. Controllers shall not use such data files, except those that are strictly necessary, without the prior express consent of the consumer, and shall not prevent access to their services if such consent is not granted. Controllers shall document and store proof of such consent and make available to consumers an easily accessible method by which they may withdraw such consent. I hope you could catch the part that I emphasized. This bill calls for an opt-in cookie model, the same one that's required in the EU by the GDPR and e-privacy directive, as well as a handful of other locations around the world that also have stringent privacy laws. When operating a website using an opt-in cookie model, you only fire strictly necessary cookies by default. This means that targeting and marketing cookies should be off by default, along with functional and performance cookies. If you wish to run these types of cookies, you need to provide the visitor with information about how you will use them, and then provide them with a way to make an informed opt-in decision. Normally, this would be done with a cookie consent banner. Only after you receive this explicit permission can you load your non-essential cookies. From a consumer privacy standpoint, this is a great model. However, it can also be challenging for businesses that want to run analytics on their website or have involvement with targeted online advertising. One of the practical challenges with the model is that many consumers don't interact with cookie banners at all. They ignore them or close out of them without declaring a preference. And in an opt-in model, that means that non-essential cookies remain inactive. Now, today, there's not a single state in the country that calls for this. Rather, an opt-out model is currently permissible under each of the state privacy laws, including the current version of the VCDPA. Opt-out cookie compliance is basically just the reverse of the opt-in model I just described. In this one, you can run non-essential cookies by default when a visitor loads your website, so long as that you provide your visitors with clear, visible cookie notices and provide them the opportunity to opt out if they choose to make that decision. The opt-out model is far more conducive to activities like website analytics and online marketing. Again, this is normally addressed with a cookie banner. However, it's one that will not be set to block anything by default. Now, here's the implication of the bill, or any bill with a similar requirement. If Virginia does pass a law requiring opt-in consent, it will be no longer practical for many organizations to use a blanket opt-out approach to cookie consent in the United States. At this moment, that's a practical option. Organizations would likely need to consider creating cookie consent policies that apply an opt-in model to visitors from Virginia, while potentially applying opt-out policies to visitors from other states. This really isn't any different from the granular sort of ways in which many organizations handle global cookie consent today. It would just bring the opt-in model closer to home for those of us in the United States, and also create a need for more nuanced cookie control here. There will certainly be more to track and follow up with here. I will say, if you are looking for a solution to address the various cookie consent requirements around the world, Captain Compliance would love to help you. Our cookie consent banners are fully customizable to match the design of your website, and they can be set up to apply different policies to different visitors based on their region. So if Virginia eventually passes this bill or a similar one, we'll modify our recommended cookie consent compliance template for the state, and we'll continue to make privacy compliance much more simple for our customers all around the globe. If you need help, please feel free to visit our website. It's www.captaincompliance.com. I'll put the link as well as additional contact information in the video description. Thanks for watching.